I want to take some time to talk about some of the problems that arise during meditation, some of the reasons for these problems, and then some of the remedies for these problems. Problems arise during meditation because of the modification of the mind. A modification of the mind is any instance where a mental impression, such as a thought or an image, arises in your mind. A modification of the mind is any instance where your mind alters from its empty, pure, and serene natural state. I don't want to propose that all thoughts and images in the mind are necessarily bad, and I certainly don't want you to judge yourself anytime a thought or an image arises. You don't want to suppress or repress anything. Nevertheless, the purpose of meditation, obviously, is to quiet the mind, to reduce mental chatter, to create inner silence. And you can achieve this by becoming more aware of the thoughts and images and by resisting the urge to identify with them. In terms of gaining more awareness of your inner thoughts and images, it's important to consider that whenever thoughts do arise, there is a corresponding reason. I want to start by talking specifically about the modifications of the mind. There are 5 primary modifications of the mind, 5 types of chitta, the Sanskrit term for mind chatter or monkey mind. The 5 primary modifications of the mind are correct knowledge, wrong knowledge, imagination, memory, and sleep. So the first modification of the mind is correct knowledge. Correct knowledge means proof, basis, foundation, and accurate notion. There are 3 means by which a person can attain correct knowledge. 1, through direct perception, or gaining evidence of something through the senses, such as seeing. For example, you know a fish died because you saw a fisher catch it and kill it. 2, through inference, or through arriving at knowledge by a logical conclusion. For example, you know that the fish died because of water pollution. And 3, through testimony, or through the word of an acceptable, reliable, and trustworthy authority. For example, the Environmental Protection Agency said that fish died because of an oil spill. So that covers the first modification of the mind, correct knowledge. Keep in mind that while correct knowledge is an ideal modification of the mind, it is still, nevertheless, a modification of the mind. Like I said earlier, I don't want to give you the impression that the modifications of the mind are necessarily bad. Rather, I want to assure you that the goal of meditation is silence and emptiness, quieting and clearing of all modifications, good, bad, or otherwise. The second modification of the mind is wrong knowledge. Wrong knowledge also means perverse, error, mistake, misapprehension, and calamity. Wrong knowledge is knowledge determined as such after study. For example, people used to believe in a geocentric model of the universe, which claimed that the sun and all the planets revolved around the earth. Eventually, this model of the universe was superseded by the heliocentric model of the universe, which claims that the earth and all the planets in our solar system actually rotate around the sun. The third modification of the mind is imagination. Imagination is the process of looking into the future and forming a mental image or concept of something that one could experience. For example, a poor man could gain pleasure by imagining himself as an affluent man with a big house and multiple cars. And a rich man could gain pleasure by imagining himself as a humble man with far less burdens and responsibilities. The fourth modification of the mind is memory. Much like the inverse of imagination and looking into the future, memory is the process of looking into the past and holding the impression of things that one already experienced. For example, a woman may have been happily engaged to a man, but now, even though the relationship has ended, she still invokes longing memories of it. The last modification of the mind is sleep. You may be wondering why sleep is listed as a modification of the mind. When the deep sleep state especially is an absence of all thoughts and images whatsoever. Well, deep sleep is listed as a modification of the mind because the deep sleep that most people experience is unconscious. When you fall asleep and descend into the deep sleep state, you lose all awareness. The goal of meditation is to increase our awareness. So those are the 5 modifications of the mind. 1, correct knowledge. 2, wrong knowledge. 3, imagination. 4, memory. And 5, sleep.